The universe operates on principles we understand: physics, chemistry, the fundamental laws of cause and effect. Subspace follows predictable patterns. Dimensional barriers hold. Matter and energy convert according to equations refined over centuries of warp travel. But what happens when something tears through those barriers with such violence that sensors cannot classify what emerges? What happens when a being appears whose very existence defies the Federation's understanding of biological possibility? The USS Enterprise D was conducting a routine survey of the Memphis sector, charting subspace anomalies near the Klingon border, when Lieutenant Commander Data's console erupted with warnings. The android's fingers moved across his station with inhuman precision as he processed readings that should not exist. "Captain," Data announced, his golden eyes reflecting the chaotic sensor data, "I am detecting a Class 7 subspace fracture bearing 27 Mark 5. The energy signature is inconsistent with any known phenomenon." Captain Jean-Luc Picard rose from his command chair, tugging his uniform jacket straight, a habitual gesture before confronting the unknown. On screen. The view screen shimmered, replacing the star field with a wound in space itself. Crimson and violet energies twisted in patterns that hurt to observe, as if reality was tearing itself apart and stitching back together simultaneously. Picard had faced temporal anomalies, spatial ruptures, even Q's reality-bending games, but this registered as fundamentally wrong on an instinctive level. "The fracture is collapsing," Data reported. "However, I am detecting a metallic signature emerging from," he paused, an unusual occurrence for the android. "Captain, sensors indicate an organic life form in the debris field. Life signs are fluctuating in a manner I cannot explain." "Counselor?" Picard glanced at Deanna Troi, whose empathic abilities often sensed what technology could not. Troy's face had gone pale, one hand pressed against her temple. "Pain, Captain. Rage. Confusion. But underneath." She struggled for words. "It's like standing next to a caged animal that's been wounded too many times to trust anything." "Mr. Worf, hail the Klingon High Command," Picard ordered. "This occurred in their territory. Protocol dictates we notify them immediately." The Klingon security chief growled acknowledgement, his ridged brow furrowing as he worked his tactical station. Worf had served aboard the Enterprise long enough to know when his captain was walking a diplomatic tightrope. Any discovery in Klingon space without proper notification could be interpreted as espionage. Before Worf could establish the channel, his console screamed warnings. "Captain, a Klingon bird of prey is decloaking, bearing directly for the debris field. They are powering weapons." The view screen shifted to show the distinctive silhouette of a Klingon warship materializing from nothing, its wings spread like a raptor descending on prey. The vessel's name translated as the Coronar, the Unyielding. "They're scanning the debris," Data reported. Attempting to lock a tractor beam on the metallic signature. Picard's jaw tightened. Whatever had emerged from that rift, both ships had detected it simultaneously. In Klingon space, that meant the Empire had first claim under interstellar law. But if that life form was sentient, if it was injured and vulnerable, the Prime Directive created murky ethical waters. "Open a channel to the Klingon vessel." The view screen filled with the face of a Klingon captain, his scarred features twisted in what might have been anticipation or hunger. His honor sash displayed the icons of at least 20 campaigns. "Federation ship. You will withdraw from Klingon territory. We claim salvage rights to whatever your sensors have detected." "Captain Kvok," Picard began, recognizing the warrior from previous diplomatic encounters, "our sensors indicate a living being in that debris field. If it requires medical assistance, then it will receive a warrior's death if it cannot stand," Kvok interrupted. "This is Klingon space, Picard. Your soft Federation ideals have no authority here." He leaned forward, eyes glinting. "Unless you wish to dispute our claim, I would welcome the excuse." The Coronar's disruptors powered to full charge, visible even on the view screen as emerald energy gathering at the weapon ports. Worf's hands hovered over tactical controls, awaiting orders. The Enterprise could win this confrontation, but firing on a Klingon vessel over salvage rights would shatter the fragile alliance and potentially reignite hostilities across the border. "Stand down weapons," Picard ordered quietly. To Kvok, he maintained diplomatic composure. "We will not interfere with your salvage operations, Captain. However, the Federation requests observer status. If the being requires humanitarian assistance, we offer our medical facilities." Kvok's laugh was harsh. "You may observe, Picard. Watch as Klingon deal with threats. Your Dr. Crusher will likely have work when we finish." He signaled off-screen. "Transporter, energize." The Coronar's transporter beam lanced toward the debris field, locking onto the metallic signature. Data's console chimed. "Captain, the life form is regaining consciousness. Bioreadings are extraordinary. Cellular regeneration occurring at accelerated rates. The metallic signature appears to be integrated with the skeletal structure." On the view screen, something materialized on the Coronar's transporter pad. Through the grainy long-range scan, Picard could make out a humanoid figure, shorter than average, powerfully built. The being was unconscious but clearly alive. And clearly dangerous. Kvok's voice carried over the still-open channel, speaking to his crew. "Bring it to the cargo bay. Restrain it. I want to see what manner of creature bleeds when we wake it." The transmission cut to static. Picard stood in silence for a moment, processing the implications. Somewhere on that Klingon vessel, a being with unknown capabilities was about to wake in the hands of warriors who valued strength above all else. Whatever had torn through that dimensional rift into this universe, it would face a trial by combat the moment it opened its eyes. "Maintain position at the border," Picard ordered. "Mr. Data, continuous scans of the Coronar. I want to know the instant anything changes." "Aye, Captain." Troy approached Picard's chair, her voice low. "Captain, the emotions I sensed from that being, whoever they are, they've been fighting their entire existence. When they wake up in a Klingon cargo bay." She didn't need to finish. Picard understood. They had just witnessed something feral and wounded dragged into a culture that would see weakness as an invitation to violence. He had no authority to intervene. But Jean-Luc Picard had never been comfortable standing by while sentient beings suffered, even when regulations demanded it. Number 1, he addressed Commander Riker, "Prepare an away team. Medical personnel, security, and diplomatic staff. If Captain Kvok extends an invitation to observe, I want us ready to transport immediately." Riker nodded grimly. "Aye, sir." On the view screen, the Coronar hung in space like a predator circling wounded prey. Somewhere inside that vessel, something with metal bonded to its skeleton and rage burned into its soul was about to meet the Klingon Empire. And neither side knew what was coming. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Trek universe, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. Live long and prosper. The cargo bay of the Coronar smelled of blood, ozone, and the particular metallic tang that came from warriors who lived between battles. Overhead lighting cast harsh shadows across duranium bulkheads decorated with bat'leths and the skulls of defeated enemies. This was not a ship designed for comfort or diplomacy. This was a vessel built for one purpose, war. Logan woke the way he always did after something tried to kill him, violently. His eyes snapped open, feral and yellow in the dim light. Memory came in fragments, the WeaponX facility, some kind of experiment with an energy source they'd stolen from God knows where, alarms screaming, reality tearing apart around him, falling through colors that shouldn't exist. Then nothing. Now he was somewhere else. Somewhere wrong. The restraints holding him were thick metal bands across his chest, arms, and legs, bolted to a vertical frame. Heavy-duty construction, military grade. His enhanced senses catalogued his situation in seconds, enclosed space, recycled air with an unfamiliar chemical composition, low-frequency vibration suggesting a ship's engine, and most importantly, he wasn't alone. 8 figures surrounded him in a semicircle. Humanoid, but not human. Ridged foreheads, dark skin tones, powerful builds wrapped in armor that looked functional rather than ceremonial. Warriors, every one of them. He could smell it on them, the particular scent of beings who killed without hesitation. The largest one stepped forward, scarred face splitting into something that might have been a smile. "It wakes," Kvok announced in Klingon, a language Logan's mind shouldn't understand but somehow did. Universal translator, some distant part of his consciousness supplied. He'd been unconscious long enough for someone to tag him with one. "Where the hell am I?" Logan's voice came out as a growl, rough from disuse and fury. Kvok's eyes lit with interest. "You speak. Good. I am Kvok, captain of the Coronar. You are in Klingon space, creature. You will answer our questions, and then you will demonstrate whether you are worthy of a warrior's death or merely prey to be discarded." Logan tested the restraints. Solid, probably designed to hold something with superhuman strength. But they hadn't accounted for what he was. "I'm not answering anything. And if you're smart, you'll let me go before this gets ugly." Kvok laughed, a harsh bark that his warriors echoed. "Threats? From a restrained opponent?" He drew a curved blade from his belt, a DK Tog, its secondary blades extending with a mechanical snap. "Perhaps you do not understand your situation." The knife moved faster than most humans could track. Kvok drove it into Logan's shoulder, angling upward to scrape against bone. The Klingon captain expected screaming, begging, or at minimum a reaction that confirmed dominance. What he got instead made every warrior in the cargo bay tense. Logan's lips pulled back from his teeth in something between a snarl and a grin. "That's supposed to hurt." Kvok twisted the blade, feeling it grind against something that shouldn't exist, metal where bone should be, impossibly hard, refusing to break. The wound bled, dark red blood running down Logan's chest, but as Kvok watched in fascination, the flesh began knitting back together around the blade. Muscle fiber reconating, skin crawling across the injury like living tissue operating on fast forward. What manner of... Kvok yanked the knife free, and the wound sealed completely within seconds. Not even a scar remained. Logan's healing factor had worked across dimensional barriers without hesitation, his mutation as fundamental to his biology as breathing. "You wanted to know what I am? I'm the guy you really shouldn't have pissed off." His claws emerged with the distinctive snicked sound that had preceded violence for over a century. 3 adamantium blades erupted from between the knuckles of each fist, extending a foot beyond his hands, gleaming in the cargo bay's harsh light. The restraints hadn't accounted for weapons that were part of his body. The metal bands holding his arms sheared apart like paper as Logan twisted his wrists, adamantium cutting through duranium with barely any resistance. The restraints across his chest and legs followed in rapid succession. In less than 3 seconds, he'd gone from captive to free and armed. Klingon warriors didn't freeze in shock often, but several heartbeats passed where no one moved. They had seen many weapons, faced enemies armed with disruptors and blades, but nothing that grew from a being's own flesh with metal that cut through military-grade restraints like they were tissue. Kvok recovered first, a smile spreading across his scarred face. "Magnificent." Logan dropped into a combat stance, claws extended, every muscle coiled for violence. 8 warriors, all armed, in an enclosed space. Bad odds for them. "I'm walking out of here. Anyone stupid enough to try stopping me is going to regret it." "You heal from wounds that should kill," Kvok said, circling slowly, his DK Tog still in hand. His warriors spread out, instinctively forming an attack pattern. "You possess weapons integrated with your skeletal structure. Metal that should not exist." He gestured to the walls. "Duranium alloy, forged to withstand disruptor fire, cut like flesh before your blades." Logan tracked every movement, his enhanced senses mapping the cargo bay for exits. There, a door to his left, probably leading to a corridor. Behind him, what looked like cargo containers. Above, maintenance hatches. Options narrowing by the second as the warriors positioned themselves. In Klingon space, we have a saying, Kvok continued. Ptq terra, veklar je, only the cursed and the damned refuse to die. You are either blessed by gods or cursed by demons. He raised his blade in formal salute. Either way, you interest me, stranger. I am Kvok, son of Mkoda, captain of this vessel and bearer of 20 campaign honors. What is your name? The question caught Logan off guard. Not an attack, not a threat, but an actual question. These warriors had stabbed him, restrained him, and surrounded him with enough firepower to level a city block, but now their leader was asking his name like it mattered. Logan, he said carefully, not lowering his guard. And I didn't ask to be here. Send me back wherever you pulled me from, and we'll call it even. Kvok shook his head. The rift that brought you collapsed. Federation sensors confirmed it. You are trapped in this universe, Logan. He said the name carefully, testing its weight. The question now is what you will do in it. Logan's claws retracted slightly, sliding back toward his knuckles. What I always do. Survive. Survival is not honor, Kvok said. It is merely existence. Warriors seek glory, purpose, a death worth singing about in Estiovokor. His eyes gleamed with something Logan recognized, the look of a fighter who'd found a challenge worth his time. You cannot die by normal means. This makes you either the perfect warrior or an abomination against the natural order. I've been called worse. Kvok gestured, and his warriors lowered their weapons slightly. Not standing down, but acknowledging that their captain was negotiating rather than executing. I propose an alternative to pointless combat in this cargo bay. You face me in ritual combat, before witnesses, where Klingon honor and your unique nature can be properly tested. Logan's enhanced hearing picked up the subtle shift in the ship's engine frequency. They were changing course, accelerating. And if I say no? Then my warriors will attempt to restrain you again, we will all fight in this enclosed space, and even if you survive, which I suspect you would, you will remain trapped on a hostile vessel in hostile space with nowhere to go. Kvok sheathed his DK tog. Or you accept my challenge, fight with honor, and regardless of outcome, earn respect that might serve you better than these claws. Logan studied the Klingon captain. The guy was scarred, experienced, and clearly not afraid to die. More importantly, he was offering something Logan rarely encountered, a straight deal with no hidden angles. Fight, prove what he was, and maybe get answers about where the hell he'd ended up. Fine, Logan said, retracting his claws fully. But I get to know what I'm walking into. Where are we going? Kvok's smile widened. To the arena on Forecast 3. And I have already sent a message to the Federation ship that followed us. Captain Picard will witness whether you are warrior or monster. Logan's jaw tightened. Federation. That word carried weight he didn't understand yet, but he recognized the setup. This wasn't just a fight. This was a demonstration. And he'd just agreed to be the main attraction. The Coronar dropped out of warp near Forecast 3 with the kind of dramatic flair Klingon preferred, decloaking directly above the planet's largest combat arena like a bird of prey announcing its presence to potential rivals. The USS Enterprise D followed at a respectful distance, maintaining standard orbit while diplomatic protocols ground through their predictable machinery. In the Coronar's observation deck, Logan stood at the viewport, studying the planet below. Forecast 3 looked like dozens of other worlds he'd seen through various military transports over the decades, rocky, utilitarian, built for function rather than beauty. But the massive circular structure dominating the northern continent caught his attention. The arena was easily 5 miles across, carved from dark stone that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The great arena of Forecast, Kvok said, approaching from behind. The Klingon captain had changed into ceremonial armor, more ornate than his shipboard gear but still designed for combat. Built 700 years ago when the Empire needed a neutral ground to settle disputes between houses without igniting civil war. Now it serves as a place where warriors test themselves, where honor is measured in blood, and where legends are born or die. Logan didn't turn from the viewport. You're making this into a show. I am giving you opportunity, Kvok corrected. You arrived in Klingon space without identity, without allegiance, without purpose. In this universe, such beings are either slaves, refugees, or threats to be eliminated. But a warrior who proves himself in the arena. He moved to stand beside Logan, his reflection visible in the transparent aluminum. That warrior earns respect. Opens doors. Gains choices. I didn't ask for choices. I asked to go home. Home is gone, Kvok said bluntly. The rift closed. Federation scientists confirmed subspace has stabilized. Whatever brought you here was singular, unrepeatable. In a universe where everything felt alien and wrong, at least violence spoke a universal language. We have a cord. The transporter beam materialized Logan and Kvok directly into the arena's preparation chamber, a stark room carved from the same dark stone as the structure itself. Klingon attendants moved with efficient precision, checking Kvok's armor, offering him water and ritual foods. Logan waved off their attempts to assist him. He didn't need preparation. His healing factor would handle any pre-fight conditioning automatically. Through an archway, Logan could hear the crowd. Thousands of voices creating a low rumble that vibrated through the stone floor. Kvok had mentioned this would be witnessed, but Logan hadn't anticipated the scale. This wasn't a back alley fight or a covert WeaponX demonstration. This was a public spectacle. The Federation ship has transported their delegation to the observation platform, one of Kvok's officers reported, entering the chamber. Captain Picard requests permission to speak with the Challenger before combat begins. Kvok looked to Logan, eyebrow raised. Your choice. Federation captains are known for lengthy speeches about ethics and prime directives. They will attempt to dissuade you, offer alternatives, question the necessity of violence. His tone made clear what he thought of such approaches. Logan considered. Part of him wanted nothing to do with bureaucrats and their speeches. But another part, the part that had survived over a century by gathering intelligence before committing to action, recognized an opportunity to understand what kind of universe he'd landed in. 5 minutes, Logan said. Then we fight. Kvok nodded to his officer, who activated a communicator. Within moments, the archway shimmered with a transporter effect, and 3 figures materialized. Logan's enhanced senses immediately cataloged them. The first was human, older, bald, carrying himself with the kind of quiet authority that came from command experience. The second was humanoid but clearly not human, pointed ears, arched eyebrows, professional distance in every movement. The third looked human but female, wearing what appeared to be a medical uniform, her expression concerned. I am Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the Federation Starship Enterprise, the bald man began, his accent refined, almost aristocratic. This is Commander Data and Dr. Beverly Crusher. We've been observing your situation since you emerged from the subspace rift, and I felt compelled to speak with you before this exhibition proceeds. Logan crossed his arms, claws still retracted. You got 3 minutes now. Make it count. Picard's jaw tightened slightly, not used to being interrupted, Logan noted, but he continued smoothly. You were brought to this universe against your will, held captive, and now you're being pressured into ritual combat that serves Klingon cultural purposes rather than your own interests. The Federation can offer sanctuary, medical evaluation, and assistance in determining whether returning to your origin point is possible. Your scientists already said the rift's closed. Current analysis suggests that, yes, the android, Data, responded. His voice had an unusual quality, too precise, too measured. However, with proper study of your physiological signature and the residual subspace harmonics, there may be possibilities we have not yet explored. Dr. Crusher stepped forward, medical tricorder already in hand. I'd like to examine you, if you'll permit it. Your healing abilities are unlike anything in our medical databases. Understanding how they function might be crucial to helping you. Logan's eyes narrowed. You want to study me like a lab rat? I've had enough of that for 10 lifetimes. No, Picard said firmly. We want to help you as a sentient being with rights and autonomy. The Federation was founded on principles of cooperation, peaceful exploration, and respect for all life forms. What Captain Quark is offering you is a path defined by violence and dominance. That is not the only option available. In your Federation, Logan said slowly, testing the word, what happens to someone like me? Someone with no records, no history, no place in your systems. Picard hesitated, and in that hesitation, Logan saw the truth. You would be processed through diplomatic channels, granted provisional status while your situation was evaluated, and provided resources to establish a new identity within Federation guidelines. The process would take time, but how much time? Another hesitation. Several months, possibly longer. There are protocols, legal frameworks that exist to protect both you and Federation citizens. They cannot simply be bypassed. Logan laughed without humor. So I'd be stuck in your bureaucracy, answering questions, filling out forms, probably monitored every second to make sure I'm not a threat. Meanwhile, I'd have no freedom, no resources, no control over my own life. He gestured toward the archway where the crowd's roar was building. Quark's offering me a fight. I win, I'm free. I lose, I'm dead. Either way, it's settled in the next hour instead of the next year. But it's a fight you cannot truly lose, Data observed with that unsettling precision. Your regenerative capabilities make death by conventional combat nearly impossible. Captain Quark may be a skilled warrior, but unless he possesses weapons that can overcome your healing factor, this confrontation serves only to demonstrate your abilities to a public audience. Logan met the android's golden eyes. You think I don't know that? You think Quark doesn't know that? This isn't about winning or losing. It's about proving something. Proving what? Crusher asked, her medical concern evident in every line of her body language. That I'm not a victim. That whatever universe I'm in, I'm still dangerous enough to respect and smart enough not to cage. Logan's claws extended halfway, making his point literally. Your Federation might be built on peace and cooperation, but what I've learned is that the only language everyone understands is strength. Quark understands that. His people understand that. And if I walk into that arena and show them what I can do, I won't have to spend months convincing committees and councils that I deserve basic freedom. Picard's expression shifted to something like disappointment. I had hoped reason might prevail over violence. Reason's got its place, Logan said, retracting his claws. But I've been to too many wars, seen too many negotiations fail, watched too many idealists get crushed by the people who understand that power matters more than principles. Maybe your Federation's different. Maybe you've built something better. But I'm not betting my life on maybe. Quark entered from the opposite archway, his bat'leth drawn, its curved blade gleaming. The crowd grows restless, Logan. And Captain Picard has had his opportunity to save you from yourself. He said the last with barely concealed mockery. Will you face me, or will you accept the Federation's generous offer to process you through their bureaucracy? Logan looked at Picard one last time. No offense, Captain. But I'll take my chances with the fight. Picard nodded slowly, accepting the decision even if he disagreed with it. Very well. But know this, regardless of what happens in that arena, the Federation does not abandon sentient beings in need. If you survive this spectacle and change your mind, our offer of assistance remains open. The three Federation officers dematerialized in a shimmer of light, leaving Logan alone with Quark and the sound of thousands of Klingon chanting for blood. They mean well, Quark said, moving toward the arena entrance. But they do not understand that some beings are forged in combat, not diplomacy. Come, Logan. Let us show them what warriors truly are. The archway opened onto the arena floor, and the roar of the crowd washed over Logan like a physical force. The great arena of Forecast 3 held 30,000 Klingon, all on their feet, all screaming for violence. Above them, in a shielded observation platform, Picard and his officers watched with expressions ranging from concern to fascination. Logan stepped into the arena, claws extending with that familiar snick, and for the first time since arriving in this universe, he felt something like home. This, at least, he understood. The arena floor was polished obsidian, smooth enough to reflect the harsh lighting that blazed from fixtures mounted high in the stone walls. Ancient Klingon script covered the perimeter, names of legendary warriors, battles that had shaped the Empire, declarations of honor written in a language that predated warp travel. The space was deliberately designed to amplify sound, so every footstep, every breath, every clash of metal would echo to the uppermost seats. Logan walked to the center, his boots clicking against stone, while Kvok circled from the opposite direction. The Klingon captain held his bat'leth in the traditional grip, a curved, double-bladed weapon that looked like a cross between a sword and a crescent moon. Logan had faced every weapon imaginable over his lifetime, but this particular blade was new to him. He'd have to learn its reach, its balance, its killing angles in real time. 30,000 Klingon fell silent as Kvok raised his blade above his head. When he spoke, his voice carried through the arena's acoustics without need for amplification. I am Kvok, son of Mkoda, captain of the Coronar, bearer of 20 campaign honors. The crowd erupted in approval, a thunderous sound that vibrated through the arena floor. Kvok waited for it to subside. Today I face an opponent from beyond our universe. A warrior who heals from wounds that should kill, whose weapons are forged within his own body, whose very existence challenges the natural order of life and death. The crowd's response was mixed now, excitement from some, uncertainty from others. Logan could smell their anticipation, their bloodlust, their curiosity. He'd been in enough fighting pits to recognize the atmosphere. They wanted a show, but more than that, they wanted proof that the universe still made sense, that Klingon warriors remained supreme even against impossible opponents. Kvok turned to face Logan directly. Logan of Earth, if that is truly your origin, I challenge you to combat under Klingon law. Fight with honor, fight with strength, fight until one of us can no longer stand. Do you accept? Logan's claws extended fully, 6 blades of adamantium catching the light like silver fire. I accept. The crowd roared approval. In the observation platform above, Captain Picard stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his expression unreadable. Beside him, Data's golden eyes tracked every micro-movement, processing combat patterns and physiological responses with mechanical precision. Dr. Crusher had her medical tricorder ready, monitoring both combatants' life signs, though Logan's readings made her instruments fluctuate wildly, cellular regeneration occurring at rates that shouldn't be biologically possible. Captain, Data said quietly, I calculate an 87% probability that Logan will survive this encounter regardless of injuries sustained. However, Captain Kvok's combat experience and familiarity with the bat'leth gives him significant tactical advantage in terms of reach and leverage. The question isn't whether Logan survives, Data, Picard replied. It's what kind of universe we demonstrate to him through our response to this violence. Counselor Troy stood beside them, her empathic senses fully extended. I'm sensing something I didn't expect, Captain. Logan isn't afraid. He's not even particularly angry anymore. He's... She struggled for the word. Resigned. This is normal for him. This is what his life has always been. Picard's jaw tightened. What kind of existence had forged a being who found ritual combat in an alien arena normal? Below, Kvok moved first. The Klingon captain was fast, faster than his bulk suggested, and the bat'leth spun in a complex attack pattern that spoke of decades of training. The blade came at Logan from 3 angles simultaneously, using the weapon's curve to create overlapping threat zones that should have been impossible to defend against. Logan didn't try to block. He moved inside the arc, letting the blade pass over his left shoulder while his right hand drove forward, claws extended toward Kvok's midsection. A killing blow, delivered with the kind of precision that came from muscle memory older than most of the Klingon watching. Kvok twisted, his armor taking the strike across the ribs instead of through his organs. The adamantium claws screeched against the metal plating, carving 3 deep grooves but not penetrating completely. The Klingon grunted, acknowledgement of impact rather than pain, and brought the Bat'leth's bottom blade up in a vicious uppercut. The blade caught Logan under the chin, the impact strong enough to snap his head back and lift him off his feet. Blood sprayed in an arc across the obsidian floor. Logan crashed backward, rolled with the momentum, and came up in a crouch, his jaw already healing. Bone knitted back together, muscle fiber reconnected, skin sealed over the wound. 10 seconds from potentially lethal injury to complete recovery. The crowd's roar reached a new pitch. They'd seen warriors survive wounds before, but never like this. Never with such casual defiance of death itself. Kvok's eyes gleamed with something approaching joy. Magnificent. Again. They clashed in the center of the arena, adamantium meeting Klingon steel in a cacophony that echoed to the highest seats. Kvok fought with the disciplined fury of a warrior who'd spent his life perfecting his craft. Every strike was calculated, every defense position to create new attack opportunities. The Bat'leth became an extension of his body, flowing through forms that had names in Klingon martial tradition, the Mokbara strike, the Taj-IQ reversal, the Kutluch sweep. But Logan had something Kvok couldn't match, time. Over a century of combat experience across dozens of wars, hundreds of fights, thousands of opponents. He'd fought Nazis in World War II, samurai in feudal Japan, assassins in the shadows of every major city, and mutants whose powers made Klingon strength look quaint. His healing factor meant he could afford to take risks that would kill any other fighter, trade wounds for position, sacrifice defense for devastating offense. Logan took a Bat'leth strike through his left shoulder, the blade punching completely through muscle and scraping against adamantium bone. Instead of retreating, he drove forward, using the weapon buried in his body as an anchor point to yank Kvok off balance. His right hand slashed across the Klingon's face, claws opening 3 parallel cuts from temple to jaw. Kvok roared, not in pain, but in exhilaration, and ripped his blade free. Logan's shoulder healed before the weapon cleared his body, flesh closing around the retreating metal in a display that made several Klingon in the front rows actually step back. "You do not fight to kill," Kvok observed, circling slowly, blood running down his face. "Your claws could pierce my skull, yet you strike armor and flesh. Why?" Logan wiped blood from his mouth with the back of his hand. "Because I don't know you well enough to decide if you deserve killing. And because I've killed enough people to know the difference between a warrior testing himself and an enemy who needs to die." Kvok's smile widened, showing teeth stained with his own blood. "Wisdom. Unexpected." He raised his Bat'leth in formal salute. "You honor the combat, Logan of Earth. Let us finish this properly." What followed was a display of martial skill that would be discussed in Klingon warrior halls for generations. Kvok abandoned formal techniques in favor of pure aggression, his Bat'leth becoming a blur of cutting edges that opened dozens of wounds across Logan's body. Chest, arms, legs, throat, anywhere the blade could reach became a target. Blood pooled on the obsidian floor, making footing treacherous. But every wound healed. Faster now, as if Logan's body had adapted to the pattern of injury, optimizing its response. Within seconds of being cut, flesh sealed. Within a minute of being stabbed, he was fighting at full capacity again. Logan pressed his advantage, getting inside Kvok's reach where the Bat'leth's length became a liability. His claws worked like surgical instruments, targeting joints in the Klingon's armor, exploiting gaps in protection. He could have gone for lethal strikes a dozen times, throat, eyes, heart, but instead he carved away Kvok's defense layer by layer, stripping armor, bloodying flesh, testing the Klingon's endurance without ending his life. Kvok fought on, even as exhaustion began to show. His breathing grew labored, his strikes less precise. The Klingon's honor wouldn't allow him to yield, not in front of 30,000 witnesses, but his body had limits that Logan's mutation simply ignored. In the observation platform, Dr. Crusher watched her tricorder with growing concern. "Captain, Kvok's life signs are deteriorating. Blood loss, shock, multiple lacerations. If this continues much longer, he'll die not from a killing blow but from accumulated trauma. Can you transport him out?" Picard asked. "Not without violating the combat's terms. Klingon law is clear, interference equals dishonor for both fighters." Picard's hands clenched behind his back. Then Logan must make the choice. Below, Logan saw what the doctor saw. Kvok was fading, his movements slowing, his balance compromised. The Klingon captain had fought magnificently, but flesh had limits that adamantium and healing factors didn't. This could end one of two ways. Logan could deliver a killing blow and prove to 30,000 Klingon that he was a ruthless killer, or he could find another way. Kvok lunged forward in one final attack, putting everything remaining into a overhead strike that would have split Logan from skull to sternum if it connected. Logan sidestepped, let the bat'leth crash into the obsidian floor hard enough to chip the stone, and drove his claws through the weapon's handle. Adamantium sheared through Klingon steel as easily as it had cut the duranium restraints on the coronar. The bat'leth's blade separated from its handle, clattering uselessly across the arena floor. Kvok stood there, disarmed, breathing hard, blood covering most of his armor. His eyes met Logan's, and in that moment, both warriors understood what was being offered. "Yield," Logan said quietly, his voice carrying in the sudden silence. "You fought with honor. You tested me. You showed your people what I am. Now yield." Kvok's hands slowly opened, releasing the ruined handle of his weapon. "I yield." The arena exploded in chaos. Some Klingon roared approval. A warrior who knew when to yield lived to fight again. Others shouted challenges. Logan had proven himself a threat that needed to be measured. But beneath the noise, there was something else. Respect. Kvok dropped to one knee, the traditional Klingon acknowledgement of a superior warrior. "I name you Betelh Pup, Master of the Blade. Your victory is recognized, your honor established, your place in the Empire acknowledged." Logan retracted his claws and offered his hand. Kvok took it, allowing himself to be pulled upright. The two warriors stood at the arena's center, both bloodied, both exhausted in their own ways, but alive. In the observation platform, Picard released a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. He chose mercy. Fascinating, Data observed. Despite his apparent acceptance of violence as conflict resolution, Logan demonstrated restraint inconsistent with pure aggression models. Counselor Troy smiled slightly. "Maybe there's more to him than we thought." But as Logan and Kvok walked toward the arena exit, the counselor's empathic senses detected something that made her smile fade. From somewhere in the upper seats, she felt a presence watching, cold, calculating, seeing Logan not as a warrior to respect but as a weapon to acquire. The Romulans had been in attendance. And they had seen everything. The medical bay aboard the coronar smelled of disinfectant and something sharp, an astringent compound unique to Klingon medicine. Kvok sat on an examination table while a medical officer worked efficiently to seal the deeper lacerations with a dermal regenerator. The Klingon captain waved away offers of pain suppressors, accepting his injuries as badges earned through honorable combat. Logan stood near the viewport, watching the stars. His own wounds had vanished completely within minutes of leaving the arena, leaving only dried blood on torn clothing as evidence they'd ever existed. He'd cleaned most of it off in the warrior's preparation chamber, but Klingon hospitality didn't extend to fresh garments. Not that he minded, he'd fought in worse conditions. "The High Council has been notified," Kvok said, accepting a flask of blood wine from his medical officer. He took a long drink before continuing. "Your victory is recorded. By tomorrow, every house in the Empire will know the name Logan and the metal claws that cut through duranium like flesh." "That's supposed to be good news?" Logan asked without turning from the viewport. "It establishes your status. You are no longer undefined salvage or potential threat. You are a warrior of recognized skill, entitled to protection under Klingon law. Kvok paused. It also means others will seek you out. Some to test themselves against you. Others to recruit you for their own purposes. Logan finally turned. And what about you? What do you want from me? Kvok met his gaze steadily. Nothing you are not willing to give. I offered you combat to prove yourself, and you delivered. My honor is satisfied. He gestured to the medical officer, who departed, leaving them alone. But I would offer counsel, if you will hear it. This universe you have entered is complex. The Federation speaks of peace, but peace is maintained through strength they pretend not to wield. The Romulans whisper of logic, but they practice deception as an art form. The Cardassians preach order, but their order is built on oppression. And the Klingon? We are what we appear to be, warriors who value honor above comfort, who face enemies directly, who understand that the universe respects strength more than good intentions. Kvok finished his blood wine. You fought like a Klingon today, Logan. Not with Klingon technique, but with Klingon spirit. That means something. Before Logan could respond, the medical bay's doors hissed open. A Klingon officer entered, his expression urgent. Captain, there is a situation. The Federation ship is hailing us. Captain Picard requests immediate communication regarding, he hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the terminology, a diplomatic emergency. Kvok's eyes narrowed. What kind of emergency? A Romulan warbird has decloaked at the system's edge. They are requesting permission to dock with the arena station. They claim they wish to open negotiations with the warrior Logan regarding potential service to the Romulan Star Empire. Logan's enhanced hearing picked up Kvok's heart rate increasing, not fear, but anticipation mixed with anger. The Romulans were watching. Of course they were watching, Kvok growled, standing despite his injuries. The arena is neutral ground. All major powers maintain observation stations in this system. The Romulans saw what you can do, and now they want to acquire you like a new disruptor technology. He grabbed his communicator. Battle stations. Full alert. If those PTQ think they can simply take. Wait, Logan interrupted. You said this place is neutral ground. That means they can't just attack and grab me, right? Kvok paused. Correct. Arena law prohibits open combat within the system. But Romulans do not need open combat. They use manipulation, bribery, blackmail. If they cannot take you by force, they will try other methods. Logan's claws extended halfway, an unconscious reaction to threat assessment. Let them try. I've dealt with manipulative bastards before. Not like the Romulans, Kvok warned. They are masters of strategy, descendants of Vulcans who rejected logic in favor of emotion and cunning. Their Tal Shir intelligence agency has resources that make Federation Section 31 look like children playing spy games. He moved toward the door. Come. Picard will attempt diplomacy, which means lengthy discussions about sovereignty and rights. But you should hear what the Romulans offer before dismissing them. Know your enemies, even if you never intend to deal with them. The conference chamber on the arena station was designed for exactly this purpose, a neutral meeting space where representatives from different powers could gather without technically violating territorial boundaries. The room was Spartan, with a single table and chairs arranged in a circle rather than traditional hierarchical seating. Ambient lighting provided equal illumination to all positions, preventing any side from claiming visual advantage. Captain Picard arrived first, accompanied by Commander Data and Lieutenant Worf. The Klingon security officer's presence seemed deliberately chosen, a reminder of the Federation-Klingon alliance and a subtle warning to the Romulans that aggression would face unified response. Kvok and Logan materialized seconds later, the Klingon captain now wearing fresh armor that concealed most of his injuries. Logan had refused any change of clothing, appearing in the same blood-stained garments he'd worn during the fight. Let them see what he was, he figured. No point pretending to be civilized. The Romulan delegation arrived last, their entrance precisely calculated for maximum psychological impact. 3 figures in the distinctive uniforms of the Romulan Star Empire, 2 guards flanking a central figure whose insignia marked her as high-ranking Tal Shiar. She was tall, her features sharp and aristocratic, her expression revealing nothing. "I am Commander Seattle of the Tal Shiar," she announced, her voice carrying the measured tones of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "I speak with full authority of the Romulan Star Empire and the continuing committee." Picard inclined his head formally. "Captain Jean-Luc Picard, USS Enterprise. I must protest this intrusion into what was a matter between the Klingon Empire and an individual seeking asylum." Seattle interrupted smoothly. "Is that what you call forcible combat in a public arena? How very Federation of you, Captain, to redefine violence as diplomacy when it suits your narrative." Her eyes shifted to Logan. "The Tal Shiar has been monitoring this system's communications. We observed the battle. We also observed your healing capabilities, your metallic skeletal structure, and your combat proficiency. These attributes are valuable." Logan crossed his arms, claws still partially extended. "I'm not for sale." "Everyone is for sale," Seattle replied calmly. "The only variable is price. The Klingon offered you freedom through combat. The Federation offers you bureaucracy disguised as assistance. We offer you purpose." "What kind of purpose?" Kvok demanded, his hand resting on his DK tog. Seattle didn't even glance at the Klingon captain. "The kind where your unique abilities serve the advancement of civilization rather than being wasted on pit fighting or diplomatic hand-wringing. The Romulan Star Empire understands that beings like Logan are products of necessity, created or evolved to survive in hostile environments. We do not judge. We do not restrict. We utilize." "You mean you exploit," Picard said sharply. The Tal Shiar's record of utilizing individuals speaks for itself. Coercion, memory manipulation, forced loyalty programming. Methods necessary for security in an unstable galaxy, Seattle countered. "Unlike the Federation, Captain, we do not pretend that peace emerges from wishful thinking. We understand that power must be wielded decisively." She produced a small data device, placing it on the table. "Logan, this contains information your Federation friends have not shared with you. The political reality of this universe. The threats that exist beyond their sanitized briefings. The Borg Collective, for instance." Data's head tilted slightly. "That information is classified for security purposes, not deception." Semantics. Seattle activated the device, and a holographic projection appeared, a massive cube-shaped vessel, its surface covered in technological components. The Borg. A collective consciousness of cybernetic beings that assimilates entire civilizations, adding their biological and technological distinctiveness to their own. They have already attacked Federation space once. They will return. And when they do, beings like you, she looked directly at Logan, beings who cannot be easily killed, who possess unique biological properties, become primary targets for assimilation. Logan studied the hologram. The ship looked like something out of a nightmare, all right angles and cold efficiency. "You saying this Borg thing would come after me specifically?" Without question, Seattle confirmed. "Your healing factor represents biological advancement they have never encountered. Your adamantium skeleton represents material science beyond their current database. You are, in their terms, a prize worth pursuing across the galaxy." She deactivated the hologram. "The Federation will tell you they can protect you. They cannot. The Klingon will offer you alliance based on honor. Honor means nothing to the Borg. But the Romulan Star Empire." She leaned forward slightly. "We can make you disappear. Place you beyond Borg sensors, beyond Federation monitoring, beyond any tracking system known to this galaxy. We can give you what you truly want, to be left alone. The room fell silent. Picard's expression had shifted to barely concealed anger, recognizing the manipulation but unable to outright deny the Borg threat. Kvok looked like he wanted to challenge Seidel to combat but understood the political impossibility. Worf's hand hovered near his phaser, reading the tension. Logan's enhanced senses detected something the others couldn't. Seidel's heartbeat had remained perfectly steady throughout her presentation. No nervousness, no deception tells, just cold calculation. She believed every word she'd said, which made her more dangerous than any liar. "You're offering me witness protection," Logan said slowly. "Hide me away where nobody can find me, and in exchange, I do what for you?" "Selective assignments," Seidel replied. "Nothing that violates your personal code. We've analyzed your combat behavior and observed your restraint with Captain Kvok. You are not indiscriminate. You can be reasoned with. We would simply direct your capabilities toward threats to Romulan security. Enemies of the state. Infiltrators. Occasionally, individuals who possess information we require and refuse to surrender it voluntarily. Torture and assassination," Picard translated bluntly. "She's describing wet work, Logan. The kind the Tal Shir uses to maintain their police state through fear." Seidel's expression didn't change. "I describe pragmatism, Captain. The same pragmatism your Section 31 practices but refuses to acknowledge publicly." Worf growled low in his throat. "The Federation does not operate through shadow organizations." "Lieutenant," Picard said quietly, cutting him off. The exchange had struck close enough to truth to be uncomfortable. Section 31's existence was an open secret, even if officially denied. Logan stood, his chair scraping against the floor. "Let me make something real clear. I don't give a damn about your politics, Federation, Klingon, Romulan, whatever. I didn't ask to be here. I don't want to be your weapon, your symbol, or your lab experiment." His claws extended fully, 6 blades gleaming in the ambient light. "What I want is to be left the hell alone. And if this Borg thing comes looking for me, I'll deal with it the same way I deal with everything else, directly and violently." Seidel regarded him with something approaching respect. Admirable sentiment. Unfortunately, naive. The Borg do not negotiate. They do not fear individual combatants. They adapt, assimilate, and overwhelm. Your claws will cut through drones efficiently until they adapt to your attack patterns. Your healing factor will regenerate damage until they inject you with nanoprobes that rewrite your cellular structure at a level your mutation cannot counter. And then you become one of them, another drone serving the collective, all that strength and healing turned against the very beings you might have protected. Is that supposed to scare me into working for you? It is supposed to make you think strategically rather than emotionally, Seidel replied. But I see you are not ready to make informed decisions. Very well. She stood, her guards flanking her immediately. The Tal Shir's offer remains open. When you tire of Klingon posturing and Federation bureaucracy, when you realize that independence in this universe requires resources you do not possess, contact us. She placed a small chip on the table. This contains an encrypted communication frequency. Use it or destroy it. The choice is yours. The Romulan delegation transported out, their departure as precisely timed as their arrival. In the silence that followed, Kvok picked up the chip between 2 fingers, studying it like a dangerous insect. They have revealed their interest. That makes you a target for acquisition now, not just by Romulans, but by anyone who sees value in denying them a resource. Picard nodded grimly. Captain Kvok is correct. By approaching you openly, Commander Seidel has ensured that every intelligence agency in the quadrant now knows you exist and possess unique capabilities. Cardassia's Obsidian Order, the Orion Syndicate, even independent mercenary groups will begin investigating. Logan looked between the 2 captains, one representing warrior honor, the other representing diplomatic idealism, and recognized that both were right. He'd thought winning a fight would buy him freedom. Instead, it had painted a target on his back visible across the galaxy. "So what do I do?" he asked, and hated how the question sounded, like someone asking for help instead of taking control. Kvok crushed the chip in his fist, grinding it to powder. "You choose allies carefully. Trust sparingly. And prepare for war, because whether you want it or not, war is coming for you." Through the viewport, a Romulan warbird recloaked, vanishing into the darkness between stars. But Logan's enhanced senses could still smell the ozone signature of their cloaking device, still hear the distinctive hum of their warp core even at this distance. They were watching. Waiting. And somewhere out there, other predators were circling. The USS Enterprise D maintained standard orbit around Forecast 3 for another 18 hours while Captain Picard engaged in what he diplomatically termed discussions with Klingon authorities. In reality, Logan suspected it was a standoff, the Federation captain trying to establish some form of protective custody, Kvok asserting Klingon sovereignty over a warrior who'd proven himself in their arena, and Logan himself refusing to commit to either side. He'd been given quarters on the arena station, neutral territory that neither the Coronar nor the Enterprise could claim jurisdiction over. The room was utilitarian, designed for transient warriors between bouts, a sleeping platform, basic hygiene facilities, and a viewport overlooking the planet's northern ice fields. Logan spent most of his time at that viewport, smoking a cigar he'd convinced a Ferengi merchant to replicate for him. The taste wasn't quite right. Replicator technology couldn't perfectly duplicate the aging process of genuine tobacco, but it was close enough. A door chime interrupted his third hour of staring at ice. "It's open," Logan called without turning. The doors hissed apart, and he caught the scent before seeing the visitor, human, female, carrying trace elements of medical compounds. Dr. Crusher entered carrying a medical kit and what looked like civilian clothing folded over one arm. "I hope I'm not intruding," she said, her tone suggesting she knew she was but had come anyway. "Captain Picard thought you might benefit from a medical evaluation." "Purely voluntary, of course." Logan took a long drag on his cigar. "Your captain doesn't give up easy, does he? It's one of his more admirable qualities." Crusher set the medical kit on a table, but didn't immediately reach for her instruments. "May I speak frankly? Doubt I could stop you. You're angry. Not at us specifically, but at your situation. You've been dragged across dimensional barriers, imprisoned, forced into combat, and now you're being courted by 3 different interstellar powers like a strategic asset rather than a person." She moved to stand beside him at the viewport. "I've treated soldiers suffering from what we call post-traumatic stress. The symptoms are remarkably consistent across species: hypervigilance, difficulty trusting others, emotional isolation." Logan's jaw tightened. "You psychoanalyzing me, Doc? I'm observing that a being who heals from physical wounds in seconds might not heal from psychological ones as quickly." Crusher's voice softened. "Whatever you experienced in your original universe, the experiments you mentioned, the people who treated you like a lab specimen, those scars don't show on your body, but I'd bet anything they're there." Logan was silent for a long moment, the cigar smoke curling toward the station's ventilation system. "You know what the worst part is? I thought I was done. After everything I'd survived, all the wars and experiments and bullshit, I thought maybe I could find some corner of the world where nobody gave a damn about what I was. Just exist for a while without someone trying to use me or kill me or study me." He finally turned to face her. "Then I wake up here, and it's the same song, different galaxy." Crusher's expression held genuine compassion. "It doesn't have to be. The Federation isn't perfect, believe me, I've seen enough of our flaws to write volumes, but we genuinely try to respect individual autonomy. If you accepted our assistance, it wouldn't be as a weapon or an experiment. It would be as a refugee seeking sanctuary. Yeah, for several months while I get processed through your system, answering questions, proving I'm not a threat, jumping through bureaucratic hoops." Logan shook his head. "I appreciate the offer, document really. But I've learned that the only person I can count on is me." Before Crusher could respond, the station's alert system activated, a low-frequency tone that made the walls vibrate. Logan's enhanced hearing picked up weapons powering up, shields activating, the distinctive sound of personnel moving to combat stations. The room's communication panel chirped. Kvok's voice came through, tight with controlled fury. "Logan, we have a situation. A Cardassian Galar-class warship just dropped out of warp at the system's edge. They are demanding that you be surrendered to them for questioning regarding potential war crimes against the Cardassian Union." Logan and Crusher exchanged glances. "War crimes?" Logan said to the comm panel. "I've never even heard of Cardassians before yesterday. That has not stopped them from filing charges with the Arena Authority." Kvok's voice carried dark amusement beneath the anger. "The Cardassians are creative with legal interpretations. They claim your adamantium skeleton matches material signatures from a covert operation 15 years ago that destroyed a Cardassian research facility. They allege you are a deep-cover operative for an unknown power." Crusher's medical tricorder was already out, scanning. "That's impossible. Logan's been in this universe less than 3 days. The Cardassians know that," Kvok replied. "This is a fabrication designed to establish legal claim. If they can convince the Arena Authority that criminal charges exist, they can demand extradition under interstellar law. And if we refuse..." He paused meaningfully. "They have justification to use force." Logan's claws extended halfway. "So the Romulans couldn't buy me, and now the Cardassians are trying to steal me using legal bullshit." "An accurate summary," Kvok confirmed. "Captain Picard is already transmitting diplomatic protests. The Arena Authority is reviewing the Cardassian claims. But I know Cardassian tactics, they have already bribed or intimidated enough of the neutral observers to create confusion. By the time the truth is established, they will have attempted a boarding action or kidnapping." Crusher was already moving toward the door. "I'm informing the captain." "Logan, stay here where I'm a sitting target." Logan interrupted. "No thanks, document." The lights flickered. Logan's enhanced senses detected a power fluctuation in the station's systems, subtle, but deliberate. Someone was tampering with the infrastructure. "They're already inside," Logan said quietly. Crusher's combadge chirped. "Enterprise to Dr. Crusher. We're detecting unauthorized transporter activity within the station. Recommend immediate beamout to." The transmission cut to static as the station's transporter inhibitors activated. Whoever was running this operation had done their homework, jamming communications, blocking transporters, creating chaos to cover their actual objective. Which was standing in this room. The door exploded inward in a shower of sparks and shrapnel. Crusher threw herself to the side as 3 figures rushed through the smoke, Cardassian soldiers in full combat armor, carrying what looked like stun rifles modified for increased output. They moved with military precision, spreading out to cover all angles. Logan's claws extended fully with that familiar snikt. "Wrong room, boys." The lead Cardassian's weapon fired, not a standard phaser beam, but a wide dispersal energy net designed to entangle and incapacitate. The crackling field hit Logan square in the chest, wrapping around him like luminous webbing. Electricity coursed through his body, every muscle seizing simultaneously. It hurt like hell. And then his healing factor kicked in. Logan's mutation didn't just repair tissue damage, it adapted to threats, building temporary resistance to whatever was trying to kill him. The electrical current that should have kept him paralyzed for minutes became manageable in seconds. He flexed against the energy net, adamantium claws slicing through the projected field like it was tissue paper. The Cardassian's expressions shifted from confidence to alarm in the half-second before Logan closed the distance. He moved like a berserker given human form, no wasted motion, no hesitation, pure predatory efficiency. His right hand swept across the lead soldier's weapon, claws shearing through the rifle's power cell. The resulting explosion threw the Cardassian backward into the wall hard enough to crack his helmet. The second soldier managed one shot before Logan was on him, claws piercing the armor at the shoulder joint, painful but not lethal, designed to disable rather than kill. The third Cardassian made the mistake of turning his weapon toward Dr. Crusher. Logan's left hand caught the rifle barrel, his grip denting the metal. Bad idea. He yanked the weapon from the soldier's grasp and drove his claws through the power coupling, turning the rifle into an expensive club. A headbutt, adamantium-reinforced skull meeting Cardassian face, and the third soldier joined his companions in unconsciousness. The entire fight lasted maybe 10 seconds. Logan stood among the fallen soldiers, breathing hard, claws still extended and dripping with minimal blood. Crusher stared at him from her position near the wall, medical tricorder clutched in white-knuckled hands. Her expression wasn't fear exactly, more like a doctor observing a medical phenomenon that challenged everything in her textbooks. You moved like. She struggled for words. Like you've done this thousands of times. Because I have. Logan retracted his claws, checking that the Cardassians were still breathing. They were, concussed, disarmed, and going to wake up with splitting headaches, but alive. I told your captain I'm not a killer unless I have to be. These guys were just doing their job. Stupid job, but still. The station's alert system changed pitch, now indicating hull breaches and unauthorized docking. Kvok's voice came through the partially functional comm system. Logan, the Cardassians have breached the station in 3 locations. Klingon warriors are engaging, but they are targeting your position specifically. The coroner is preparing to fire on the Cardassian ship, but that will ignite open warfare. Picard's voice cut in, transmitted through Crusher's comm badge. Absolutely not, Captain Kvok. If you fire on a Cardassian military vessel, you provide them exactly the justification they need to claim Klingon aggression. The political ramifications. Damn your political ramifications. Kvok snarled. They are kidnapping a warrior under Klingon protection. Then we beam him to the Enterprise under diplomatic immunity protocols. Transporter inhibitors are still active, Captain. We cannot. Logan picked up one of the Cardassian rifles, checking its charge. Still functional despite the damage. You two keep arguing, he interrupted both captains. I'm gonna solve this problem the direct way. Crusher stepped forward. Logan, wait. If you engage Cardassian military forces, you'll be confirming their narrative. They'll claim you attacked them, use it as propaganda. Let them claim whatever they want. Logan moved toward the shattered doorway. I'm tired of being the prize everyone's fighting over. Time to remind them I'm not some asset to be acquired, I'm the guy who bites back. He stepped into the corridor and into chaos. The station's interior had transformed into a combat zone. Klingon warriors battled Cardassian soldiers at 3 major junctions, disruptors and phaser fire scorching walls. Emergency klaxons wailed. Wounded personnel from multiple species limped toward medical stations. And through it all, Logan could smell something else, the ozone signature of additional transporter activity, coming from a section of the station that should have been secured. Someone else was using the chaos as cover. A 4th player had entered the game. Logan's enhanced hearing picked up movement from an access corridor to his right, footsteps too light for Klingon warriors, too precise for panicked civilians. He moved that direction, Cardassian rifle held ready, every sense on high alert. The corridor opened into a cargo bay where arena equipment was stored. And standing in the center, surrounded by 6 figures in nondescript black combat gear, was another person who clearly didn't belong. Human-looking, but wrong. Too perfect. Biosynthetic. An android or cyborg, its face expressionless as it analyzed something on a handheld device. The figures in black weren't soldiers, they were operatives. Professionals. One of them spoke into a communicator. Target acquired. Initiating extraction protocol Omega-7. They weren't here for Logan. They were here for something the Cardassian attack had exposed, whatever this android was retrieving from the station's secure storage. Logan stepped into the cargo bay, rifle aimed. Party's getting crowded. Who the hell are you people? The android's head turned with mechanical precision. Its eyes were completely black, reflecting nothing. When it spoke, its voice carried harmonics that shouldn't exist in biological speech. We are unaffiliated with your conflict. Withdraw, and you will not be harmed. That's not how this works, Logan replied. The android tilted its head, processing. You are the dimensional anomaly. Fascinating. Sensor profiles do not match any recorded species. Recommendation: capture for analysis would benefit the collective's understanding of. Logan's blood went cold. That word. Collective. Dr. Crusher's voice came through his stolen comm badge, barely audible over the combat noise. Logan, sensors are detecting another vessel decloaking at extreme range. Energy signature matches, oh god. It's a Borg cube. The android smiled, a horrible expression on that synthetic face. We are Borg. Resistance is futile. The Borg drone's declaration hung in the air for exactly 1.3 seconds before Logan opened fire. The Cardassian rifle's energy beam struck the drone's center mass, a shot that would have dropped any organic being. The drone's personal shield flared, absorbing the impact with barely a ripple. Its black eyes remained fixed on Logan as nanoprobes began flooding its system, adapting to the weapon's frequency in real time. Adaptation complete, it announced with mechanical precision. Cardassian disruptor technology, Type 3 emitter configuration. Threat level, negligible. The 6 operatives in black moved with coordinated efficiency, forming a protective perimeter around the drone. But these weren't Borg, their movements were too individualistic, their equipment too varied. Mercenaries or intelligence operatives hired to facilitate the Borg's infiltration under cover of the Cardassian attack. Logan threw the useless rifle aside and extended his claws. Let's see you adapt to these. He moved before the operatives could react, closing the 20-foot gap in less than 2 seconds. The first operative raised a weapon, some kind of plasma caster, but Logan's left hand swept through the barrel, adamantium shearing the technology like butter. His right hand drove into the operative's shoulder, claws punching through body armor to disable without killing. The second operative fired a neural disruptor. The beam hit Logan's chest, designed to scramble synaptic responses and induce immediate unconsciousness. Logan stumbled, his nervous system screaming protest, but his healing factor was already flooding his brain with compensatory neurotransmitters. 3 seconds of disorientation, then he was moving again. 2 more operatives went down to calculated strikes, joints severed, weapons destroyed, bodies rendered combat ineffective but alive. Logan had fought enough battles to know the difference between soldiers following orders and people who deserved killing. These mercenaries were just doing a job, even if that job was working for the Borg. But the drone was different. It watched Logan's assault with analytical detachment, processing combat data, calculating threat assessments. When Logan finally closed on it, claws extended for a strike that would take its head off, the drone moved with speed that shouldn't be possible for a humanoid frame. Its arm shot out, catching Logan's wrist. The grip was like being grabbed by an industrial vice, crushing pressure that would have shattered human bone. Logan's adamantium skeleton held, but barely. The drone's other hand clamped onto Logan's shoulder, and he felt something pierce his skin. Microscopic tubules extended from the drone's palm, injecting directly into Logan's bloodstream. Nanoprobes, billions of microscopic machines designed to rewrite cellular structure, to assimilate organic tissue and convert it into Borg components. The drone's voice took on something approximating satisfaction. Assimilation beginning. Biological distinctiveness will be added to the collective. Your healing capabilities will enhance Borg regeneration protocols. Resistance is. Logan's healing factor detected the foreign invasion and responded with prejudice. At the cellular level, a war erupted. Borg nanoprobes attempted to attach to cells, inject programming, begin the conversion process. But Logan's mutation wasn't just healing, it was adaptive defense, evolved through decades of exposure to toxins, diseases, and experimental procedures that would have killed anyone else. His white blood cells multiplied exponentially, attacking the nanoprobes like an immune system fighting a virus. His cellular regeneration outpaced the assimilation process, destroying infected tissue and replacing it faster than the Borg technology could adapt. The drone's expression shifted from confidence to something approaching confusion. Anomaly detected. Assimilation efficiency, 12%. Declining to 8%. 4%. 0%. It released Logan, stepping back. Adaptation unsuccessful. Biological distinctiveness demonstrates resistance to assimilation. Recalculation required. Logan ripped the tubules from his shoulder, watching as the puncture wound sealed in seconds. Black ichor, corrupted blood being expelled by his system, dripped from the healing tissue. Told you. I'm the guy who bites back. The cargo bay's main doors exploded inward. Klingon warriors poured through, led by Kvok himself, his bat'leth already stained with Cardassian blood. Behind them came Worf and a security team from the Enterprise, phasers set to maximum stun. But they all froze when they saw what stood in the cargo bay's center. Borg, Worf breathed, his voice carrying the weight of personal nightmare. The Klingon security officer had fought the Collective before, knew what they represented. Captain, we have Borg on the station. Repeat, Borg presence confirmed. Picard's voice came through every active comm badge simultaneously. All personnel, this is Captain Picard. Engage evasive pattern Delta 7. Enterprise to all ships in system, Borg cube detected at coordinates 47 Mark III. I am declaring emergency protocols under Section 12 of the Khitomer Accords. The drone processed this information with mechanical efficiency. Federation Captain Jean-Luc Picard. Designation, Locutus of Borg. Previously assimilated, subsequently recovered. Probability of recapture, 73%. Its attention returned to Logan. You will be preserved for future analysis. The Collective requires further study of your adaptive resistance. The Collective can go to hell, Logan growled. The drone's head tilted. Hell, mythological concept without empirical basis. Irrelevant. It touched a device on its wrist. Initiating transport. Before anyone could react, the drone and its remaining operatives dissolved in a transporter beam, not the familiar sparkle of Federation or Klingon technology, but a cold green shimmer that left ozone and the smell of decaying circuitry in its wake. Kvok immediately barked orders in Klingon. His warriors fanned out, securing the cargo bay, checking for additional threats. Worf's security team did the same, their training kicking in despite the horror of facing their worst enemy. Dr. Crusher rushed into the cargo bay, medical tricorder already scanning Logan. Are you injured? Did it? She saw the black ichor on his shoulder, her face going pale. Logan, if those nanoprobes are still in your system. They're not. Logan wiped the corrupted blood away, revealing unmarked skin beneath. My healing factor kicked them out. Felt them trying to take hold, and my body just rejected them. Like my immune system treating them as a disease. Crusher's tricorder confirmed it, though her expression suggested she didn't quite believe the readings. No nanoprobes detected. No cellular corruption. No signs of Borg technology integration. She looked up at him with something between awe and scientific fascination. You fought off Borg assimilation. That's supposed to be impossible. Doc, I've been impossible since the day they bonded metal to my bones, Logan replied. This is just one more thing that can't kill me. Picard's voice cut through the moment. All hands, tactical update. The Borg cube is changing course. It's heading directly for the station. Estimated time to weapons range, 4 minutes. The cargo bay fell into grim silence. Everyone present understood what that meant. A single Borg cube could destroy planets, assimilate entire civilizations. The combined forces of a Federation starship, a Klingon bird of prey, and the station's minimal defenses wouldn't even slow it down. Kvok moved to stand beside Logan, his bat'leth still ready despite the futility. If we die today, we die as warriors. There is honor in that. I don't plan on dying, Logan said flatly. He looked at Crusher. Can you get me to that cube? She stared at him like he'd suggested swimming through a star. What? Logan, no. You can't fight an entire Borg cube. There are thousands of drones on those ships. I'm not going to fight them. I'm going to give them what they want. Logan's jaw set in determination. They came here for me. Said they want to study my adaptive resistance. So let's give them something to study, up close and personal. Worf's tactical mind processed the implications immediately. You intend to allow yourself to be captured and destroy the cube from within. Something like that. Picard's voice carried the weight of command experience. That's suicide, Logan. Even with your healing abilities, the Borg will overwhelm you through sheer numbers. They'll adapt to your attacks, restrain you, study you indefinitely. Maybe, Logan acknowledged. Or maybe I get inside, 'cause enough damage to make them reconsider whether I'm worth the trouble, and they back off. Either way, it buys you time to evacuate the station and get civilian ships out of the system. Kvok's laugh was harsh but approving. A warrior's plan. Insane, with minimal chance of success, but glorious if it works. He gripped Logan's shoulder. If you survive, there will be songs sung of this day. I don't need songs. I need a way onto that cube that doesn't involve them just beaming me into a holding cell. Logan looked at the Enterprise officers. Can you transport me close enough that I can cut my way in? Data's voice came through the comm system, having monitored the conversation. Theoretically possible, though extremely dangerous. Borg cubes maintain powerful deflector shields. However, there are periodic fluctuations in shield coverage near their propulsion systems, vulnerable points where a single humanoid could potentially penetrate the hull. How long would I have before they adapted and closed the gap? Approximately 15 seconds. Logan's claws extended. Then I better cut fast. Crusher grabbed his arm. Logan, please. There has to be another way. If you do this, if you board that cube, the odds of survival. Doc, I've beaten worse odds. Logan's expression softened slightly. I appreciate the concern. Really. But this is what I do. Someone's gotta be the guy who runs toward the nightmare instead of away from it. Picard made a decision that would haunt him for weeks afterward. Mr. Data, calculate transport coordinates. Dr. Crusher, provide Logan with whatever medical supplies might prove useful against Borg technology. Captain Kvok. My ship will provide covering fire, Kvok interrupted. If this madman is willing to board a Borg cube alone, the least I can do is make them notice. Through the cargo bay's viewport, the cube was visible now, a massive geometric monstrosity blotting out stars as it approached. Its surface crawled with technology, weapons arrays, tractor beams. Thousands of drones moved within, all connected to a single consciousness that had destroyed countless civilizations. And Logan was about to walk into its heart. Worf approached, extending his hand. Logan gripped it, a warrior's acknowledgement between beings who understood what it meant to face impossible odds. Kapla, Worf said quietly. The Klingon word for success, spoken as both blessing and farewell. Yeah, Logan replied. You too. Dr. Crusher pressed a hypospray into his hand, something she'd modified in the 30 seconds since this insane plan had been conceived. Concentrated anticoagulant. If they try to inject you with nanoprobes again, this might buy your healing factor additional seconds to respond. It's not much, but it's something. Thanks, document. The transporter room aboard the Enterprise hummed with energy, its systems pushed to maximum range and precision. Chief O'Brien stood at the controls, his expression grim. Coordinates locked. You'll materialize approximately 3 meters from the hull breach near their portside propulsion manifold. You'll have maybe 10 seconds before the Borg detect you and 15 before they adapt their shields. Logan stepped onto the transporter pad. No armor, no weapons except the claws that were part of his body, no backup plan except the same thing that had kept him alive for over a century, sheer stubborn refusal to die. Energize, he said. The transporter beam caught him, and Logan dissolved into golden light. His last sight was Dr. Crusher's horrified expression and Kvak's approving nod. Then he materialized in the cold vacuum of space, 3 meters from a Borg cube, with 15 seconds to do the impossible. His claws extended, and Logan launched himself toward the hull with every ounce of strength his mutation could provide. Time to teach the Borg what happens when they try to assimilate the wrong mutant. Space was silent, cold, and utterly indifferent to whether Logan lived or died in the next 10 seconds. His healing factor compensated for the vacuum instantly, cellular adaptation creating temporary resistance to explosive decompression, blood vessels constricting to prevent boiling, autonomous nervous system maintaining consciousness despite zero oxygen. He'd survived being submerged underwater for extended periods. Space was just another hostile environment his mutation would adapt to. But adaptation had limits, and those limits were measured in seconds, not minutes. The Borg cube's hull loomed before him, a nightmare of geometric precision and technological integration. Dark metal covered in conduits, sensor arrays, and defensive systems that could vaporize him the instant they registered his presence as a threat. Logan had maybe 8 seconds of consciousness remaining before his brain started shutting down non-essential functions. His claws struck the hull. Adamantium met Borg alloy in a shower of sparks visible even in vacuum. The hull was reinforced, designed to withstand photon torpedoes and disruptor fire. But it hadn't been designed to resist a material that shouldn't exist in this universe, a bonded metal biological hybrid that cut through advanced technology like it was tissue paper. Logan dragged his claws down, carving a gash 3 feet long. Atmosphere vented from the opening, precious oxygen he needed desperately. His lungs screamed for air, his vision tunneling as hypoxia began claiming his consciousness. He jammed his other hand into the gash and pulled, adamantium fingers tearing metal like fabric. The hull breach widened. Atmosphere roared out, and Logan let it pull him inside. He tumbled through the opening into a Borg corridor, landing in a heap as his healing factor flooded his system with oxygen absorption, restoring brain function in seconds. The taste was wrong, recycled through Borg environmental systems, contaminated with the metallic tang of assimilation technology, but it was breathable. Logan stood, claws still extended, and got his first real look at the inside of a Borg cube. The corridor stretched in geometric perfection, walls covered in technology that pulsed with sickly green light. Conduits carried data, power, and God knew what else through the ship's infrastructure. Alcoves lined the walls at regular intervals, each containing a Borg drone in various states of regeneration. Their eyes were closed, faces slack, bodies connected to the collective through cables and neural interfaces. And every single drone's eyes opened simultaneously as the collective detected the intruder. Intruder detected, 1,000 voices announced in perfect unison, the collective speaking through every drone at once. Species designation, unknown. Biological distinctiveness, significant. Technological distinctiveness, significant. Defensive response, eliminate or assimilate. The drones disconnected from their alcoves with mechanical precision, moving to surround Logan. 20, 30, 40 of them materializing from side corridors, all moving with coordinated efficiency that made Kvak's warriors look chaotic by comparison. Logan dropped into a combat stance. Come on, then. Let's dance. The first wave attacked with the collective's calculated ruthlessness. They didn't hesitate, didn't fear, didn't feel anything except the driving imperative to assimilate or destroy. Logan met them with a century of combat experience distilled into pure violence. His claws carved through the first drone's torso, punching through the technological implants that covered its chest. The drone collapsed, its connection to the collective severed. The second drone adapted, raising a personal shield that deflected Logan's initial strike. Logan adjusted mid-swing, his other hand coming up to slash through the shield emitter mounted on the drone's arm. The shield failed, and his follow-up strike took the drone down. But for every drone that fell, 2 more appeared. And worse, they were adapting. The third drone blocked Logan's claws with forearm-mounted energy shields specifically calibrated to resist adamantium. The fourth carried a weapon that fired concentrated plasma designed to overwhelm his healing factor. The fifth through seventh coordinated their attacks, forcing Logan to defend from multiple angles simultaneously. Logan fought like a berserker given form, his claws a blur of silver death, his healing factor working overtime to repair the damage that got through his defenses. Plasma burns sealed in seconds. Severed muscle regenerated mid-combat. Even a neural disruptor shot to his spine only paralyzed him for 3 seconds before his healing factor compensated. But he was being pushed back, step by step, deeper into the cube's interior. The collective was learning from every exchange, every injury he inflicted, every defense he employed. And Logan realized with growing dread that Kvok and Picard had been right. You couldn't defeat the Borg through individual combat. They adapted faster than you could overwhelm them. Species demonstrates exceptional combat efficiency, the collective announced through a dozen voices. Healing capabilities exceed all recorded biological parameters. Skeletal reinforcement suggests advanced metallurgical knowledge. Conclusion, optimal for assimilation. More drones closed in, these ones carrying specialized equipment. Injector tubules designed for forced assimilation, restraint fields calibrated to his strength, neural dampeners tuned to his specific brainwave patterns. They weren't trying to kill him anymore. They were trying to capture him. Logan backed against a wall, chest heaving, his body already healing from 24 wounds. He'd taken down maybe 40 drones, but there were thousands more on this cube. And every second he spent fighting was a second the collective spent analyzing, adapting, learning how to neutralize him. Then something changed. The drones suddenly stopped advancing, frozen in place like someone had hit a pause button. Their collective consciousness rippled with something Logan had never expected to sense from the Borg, confusion. Anomaly detected, the collective announced, its unified voice carrying a note of uncertainty. Hull breach in Section 7 Alpha. Unauthorized entry. Species designation, Klingon. Additional anomaly, Federation transporters activating within cube interior. Logan's enhanced hearing picked it up, the distinctive sound of Federation transporter beams, materializing somewhere deeper in the cube. And the guttural war cries of Klingon warriors engaging in combat. Those crazy bastards had followed him in. The collective's attention divided. Half the drones surrounding Logan pivoted and marched toward the new threats with mechanical precision. The other half remained focused on him, but their coordination had fractured slightly, individual nodes processing different tactical priorities instead of operating as a seamless whole. Logan didn't waste the opportunity. He launched himself at the nearest alcove-lined wall, claws extended, and began carving. Not at drones, at the infrastructure itself. Adamantium slashed through power conduits, severed data cables, ripped into the technological nervous system that connected drones to the collective. Sparks erupted from wounded circuits. Systems failed in cascading sequences. The lights flickered, emergency protocols activating as damage spread through the cube's network. Damage to primary systems detected, the collective announced, its voice taking on an edge of something that might have been concern. Regeneration protocols, insufficient. Adaptive response, inadequate. A section of wall exploded outward, and Kvok burst through wielding his batleth, followed by 6 Klingon warriors. They were already wounded, cuts from drone weapons, burns from plasma fire, but their faces carried the exhilaration of warriors engaged in glorious battle. I told you I would provide covering fire. Kvok roared, his blade taking a drone's head off in a single stroke. Did you think Klingon would let you face the collective alone? Behind them, a Federation security team materialized, Worf leading the charge, phaser rifles set to maximum power. Captain's orders: extract Logan and inflict maximum damage before retreating. He was quite specific about the "before retreating" part. Logan couldn't help it, he laughed. A genuine, surprised bark of laughter that echoed through the Borg corridor like a declaration of defiance. "You're all insane. Today is a good day to die," Worf replied with grim Klingon philosophy. "But a better day to take enemies with us." The combined force, Mutant, Klingon, and Starfleet, became a whirlwind of destruction moving through the cube's interior. Logan carved through infrastructure. Kvok's warriors engaged drones in brutal close-quarters combat. Worf's security team provided covering fire with phasers recalibrated to rotating frequencies, buying precious seconds before the Borg adapted. They fought their way deeper into the cube, following Logan's instinct that told him something important lay at the vessel's core. And then they found it. The central chamber was massive, a cathedral of technology dedicated to the collective's consciousness. Thousands of data streams converged here, neural pathways carrying information from every drone on the cube. And suspended in the chamber's center, connected to the entire network through countless cables and wireless links, was the Borg Queen. She was beautiful in a horrifying way, part organic, part machine, her body a fusion of flesh and technology that shouldn't be possible. Her eyes focused on Logan with intelligence that transcended mere artificial programming. This wasn't just another drone. This was the voice of the collective given form. "Fascinating," she said, her voice carrying harmonics from 1,000 vocal processors. "You damage our vessel, resist our assimilation, and bring allies into the heart of our cube. Species designation will be Wolverine. A fitting name for one who fights with claws and refuses to submit." Logan's claws extended fully. "I'm not here for conversation." "No," the Queen agreed. "You are here to teach us that you cannot be easily taken. You fight not to destroy the collective, you know that is impossible, but to establish that acquiring you costs more than we are currently willing to pay." Her expression might have been a smile. "We understand. The Borg respect efficiency. Your presence has caused significant damage. The tactical calculus has shifted." Kvok raised his batleth. "Then we will continue causing damage until you leave this system." "Unnecessary," the Queen replied. "We withdraw. For now. But the collective is patient, Wolverine. We will study what we have learned from this encounter. We will adapt. And when we return, and we will return, you will find we have prepared specifically for your distinctiveness." The chamber's lighting shifted. Logan felt the distinctive tingle of transporter beams activating throughout the cube, not Borg transporters, but Federation and Klingon technology locking onto their people for emergency extraction. "Captain Picard is evacuating you," the Queen observed. "Go, then. But know that the Borg have marked you. You are interesting." Logan met her gaze directly. "Then you better bring more drones next time." The transporter beam caught him, along with Kvok and Worf's entire team. The last thing Logan saw before dematerialization was the Queen's expression, calculating, analytical, and containing something that might have been anticipation. They materialized on the Enterprise's transporter pad in various states of damage. Kvok's warriors were bloodied but triumphant. Worf's security team bore the scorch marks of plasma weapons. And Logan stood at the center, his clothing shredded, his body already healing from a dozen wounds, his claws still extended. Dr. Crusher rushed forward with medical teams. "What the hell were you thinking? All of you." "That was glorious," Kvok finished, accepting medical attention with obvious reluctance. "We boarded a Borg cube, fought the collective on their own ground, and lived to tell of it. Songs will be sung." "Captain," Data's voice came through the comm system, "the Borg cube is withdrawing. They are retreating from the system at maximum speed." On the bridge view screen, the massive cube turned with ponderous grace and accelerated into warp, vanishing in a flash of distorted spacetime. The immediate threat was over. But as Logan retracted his claws and accepted Crusher's medical scan, he understood what the Queen had really said. The Borg had marked him not as an enemy to be destroyed, but as a problem to be solved. They would return, and next time, they would be prepared. He'd won this round. But the war had just begun. The debriefing room aboard the USS Enterprise D was designed for calm, rational discussion of tactical situations. Soft lighting, comfortable chairs arranged around an oval table, view screen displaying relevant data in organized formats. Captain Picard believed that decisions made in civilized environments produced civilized outcomes. Logan sat at that table, still wearing the shredded remains of his clothing, dried blood covering his arms and chest, and wondered if Picard understood that some problems couldn't be solved with civilization. The room held an unusual assembly, Picard at the table's head, Data and Worf representing Starfleet tactical analysis, Dr. Crusher monitoring medical readouts, and Kvok standing rather than sitting because Klingon pride demanded he remain on his feet despite injuries. A holographic communication link displayed the faces of 3 Starfleet admirals, their expressions ranging from concern to barely concealed anger. Admiral Nechayev spoke first, her voice carrying the clipped precision of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Captain Picard, I want to be absolutely clear about what occurred today. You authorized a boarding action against a Borg cube. You transported personnel, including a foreign national under disputed jurisdiction, into the most dangerous vessel class known to the Federation. And you did this without authorization from Starfleet Command. Picard's jaw tightened. Admiral, the situation required immediate tactical response. The Borg cube was targeting the station specifically to acquire Logan. Allowing them to succeed would have provided the collective with unprecedented biological data and potentially created an assimilated being with resistance to standard Borg protocols. So instead, you gave them direct combat data on his capabilities, another admiral, Hayes, interjected. You showed them exactly what he can do, how he fights, how he heals. The Borg now have comprehensive tactical profiles on an asset that 3 major powers are attempting to acquire. Logan's claws extended halfway under the table, an unconscious response to being called an asset again. Kvok noticed and grinned slightly. The Klingon appreciated Logan's barely restrained hostility toward bureaucratic discussion. With respect, Admiral, Worf said, his voice carrying the measured tone of someone defending their captain. Logan's boarding action prevented the Borg from conducting systematic analysis in a controlled environment. By forcing combat on his terms, he demonstrated capabilities the collective found unprofitable to continue pursuing. For now, Data added. However, Lieutenant Worf is correct. The Borg Queen's withdrawal suggests they calculated that immediate acquisition costs exceeded potential benefits. This represents an unusual decision matrix for the collective, which typically pursues resources regardless of short-term losses. Admiral Nechayev's holographic image leaned forward. And what about the larger political situation? We now have a being of unknown origin, possessing technology beyond our understanding, who has demonstrated combat effectiveness against the Borg. The Romulans are claiming he should be turned over to them for diplomatic study. The Cardassians are still maintaining their fraudulent criminal charges. And the Klingon Empire, she glanced at Kvok, is asserting legal protection based on arena combat that Starfleet did not authorize. Kvok's response was predictably blunt. The Federation did not authorize it because the Federation has no authority over Klingon warrior traditions. Logan proved himself in honorable combat. That gives him status in the Empire regardless of your bureaucratic objections. Status that makes him a political flashpoint, Hayes countered. Every intelligence agency in the quadrant now wants either to recruit him, study him, or eliminate him as a potential threat to their enemies. Logan had heard enough. He stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the deck plating. I got a real simple solution to all this political bullshit. Let me go. No Federation protection, no Klingon sponsorship, no Romulan recruitment. Just point me toward the emptiest part of space you've got, drop me on some backwater planet nobody cares about, and forget I exist. That's not possible, Picard said quietly. You've been seen, Logan. Documented. Your capabilities are now recorded in databases across multiple governments. Simply disappearing would create a power vacuum that every faction would rush to fill, each one searching for you to prevent their rivals from finding you first. Then I'll keep moving. Stay ahead of them. Dr. Crusher shook her head. For how long? Years? Decades? Your healing factor might make you effectively immortal, but that doesn't mean you should spend eternity running. I've been running for over a century, document. I'm good at it. But you shouldn't have to be, she insisted, her voice carrying genuine emotion. That's the point of the Federation, to create a society where beings don't have to constantly fight for survival, where differences are celebrated rather than exploited. Logan's expression softened slightly. I appreciate what you're trying to build, document really. But I've seen too many idealistic societies collapse the second they face something that doesn't fit their worldview. You want me to believe the Federation's different? Prove it. Let me walk away without spending the next 6 months filling out forms and answering questions and being studied by people who see me as a biological curiosity. The silence that followed was broken by Admiral Nechayev's resigned sigh. He has a point, Captain. The Federation's processing protocols for refugees and asylum seekers are extensive. And given Logan's unique circumstances, there would be additional security screenings, medical evaluations, psychological assessments. The process could take a year or more. During which time, Kvok added, the Romulans would attempt infiltration, the Cardassians would file additional legal challenges, and opportunistic factions would see him as a prisoner rather than a protected individual. The Federation's civilization becomes his cage. Picard stood as well, moving to the viewport where the stars provided context for impossible decisions. I entered Starfleet because I believed in exploration, in seeking out new life and new civilizations. But I've learned that sometimes the most profound discovery is recognizing when our help isn't wanted, or when providing it does more harm than good. He turned back to face the room. Logan, I cannot officially authorize your departure without Federation oversight. But I also cannot in good conscience condemn you to bureaucratic imprisonment when you've demonstrated nothing but defensive action since arriving in this universe. His eyes met Logan's directly. So I'm going to make a command decision that will likely cost me several reprimands. Admiral Nechayev's holographic expression showed she knew exactly what was coming. Captain Picard, don't. The Enterprise's sensors are experiencing periodic fluctuations, Picard continued smoothly. A residual effect from our proximity to the Borg cube, no doubt. During one of these fluctuations, say, in approximately 2 hours, it's possible that a single humanoid biosignature might transport to a nearby planet without our detection. And by the time our systems return to full operational capacity, that individual might have moved beyond our sensor range. Data's head tilted slightly. Captain, our sensors are functioning at optimal efficiency. There are no fluctuations. Worf's hand landed heavily on Data's shoulder. The captain said our sensors are experiencing fluctuations, Commander. Data processed this for exactly 1.3 seconds. Ah. Yes. Fluctuations. Most unfortunate. I shall begin diagnostic protocols immediately, which will require taking our sensor grid offline for 2 hours. Admiral Nechayev closed her eyes briefly, recognizing when an argument was already lost. Captain, you realize this sets a dangerous precedent. If word spreads that the Federation allowed a being with Logan's capabilities to simply disappear, then word will spread that the Federation respects individual autonomy even when inconvenient, Picard finished. That we practice the principles we preach, even when doing so creates political complications. Kvok barked a laugh. I withdraw my earlier assessment of Federation weakness. This, Picard, this is worthy of respect. He turned to Logan. You will need supplies. Replicator credits, a translation device, star charts for neutral territory. The Coronar can provide Klingon currency that trades well in independent systems. I can prepare a medical kit, Crusher added. Portable equipment, emergency supplies. Nothing you couldn't acquire elsewhere, but it might prove useful. Logan looked around the room at people from different species, different cultures, different philosophies, all of whom had decided to help him for no other reason than it was the right thing to do. It was a strange feeling, not the suspicion he'd learned to associate with offers of assistance, but something that might have been genuine gratitude. Why? He asked simply. You don't know me. For all you know, I could be everything the Romulans and Cardassians claim, a weapon, a threat, someone who'll cause problems the second your backs are turned. Picard's expression held the wisdom of someone who'd faced impossible choices and lived with the consequences. Because, Logan, I've learned that the measure of a civilization isn't how it treats those who fit easily into its structures. It's how it treats those who don't. You asked us to prove the Federation is different. Consider this our answer. 2 hours later, Logan stood in the transporter room wearing new clothes, simple civilian garments that wouldn't identify him with any particular faction. A small pack contained Crusher's medical supplies, Kvok's currency, and a PADD with star charts to independent colonies where questions weren't asked and pasts weren't investigated. The doctor had insisted on one final scan, her medical tricorder humming as it analyzed his biosigns. You're completely healed. Not even scar tissue remaining from the Borg encounter. She looked up at him. Logan, if you ever need help, real help, not bureaucratic processing, there are ways to contact me directly. Off the record. She pressed a small device into his hand. Emergency medical transponder. It'll work for exactly one use, and only in extreme circumstances. But if you're dying, truly dying, it'll send a signal I'll recognize. Logan pocketed the device. Thanks, document. For everything. Worf entered, carrying something wrapped in cloth. A gift, from the Klingon Empire. He unwrapped it to reveal a DK Tog, the traditional Klingon warrior's knife. Kvok asked that I present this. He said any warrior who boards a Borg cube deserves to carry Klingon steel. The blade was beautiful in its brutal simplicity. Logan accepted it with a nod of respect. Tell him I'll use it well. Captain Picard was the last to arrive, and for a moment, he simply stood there studying Logan as if memorizing details. I don't know if our paths will cross again. This universe is vast, and you seem determined to find its empty corners. But I want you to know that today, you reminded me why I chose Starfleet. Not for the regulations or protocols, but for moments when we can make choices that matter. Logan extended his hand. Picard gripped it firmly, not a warrior's clasp like Kvok's, but something equally meaningful. An acknowledgement between two beings who understood that doing the right thing often meant defying the easy path. One more thing, Picard said. The planet we're sending you to, Vander 4. It's an independent colony, outside Federation space, outside Klingon territory. They don't ask questions, they don't report to any central authority, and they have a reputation for being inhospitable to people who cause trouble. You should fit in well. Logan almost smiled. Sounds perfect. Chief O'Brien stood at the transporter controls, his expression carefully neutral. Coordinates locked. Ready when you are, Captain. Energize, Picard ordered. The transporter beam caught Logan, and he felt the familiar sensation of dissolution and reconstitution. His last sight was the Enterprise's transporter room, Picard, Crusher, and Worf standing at attention, offering a farewell to someone who'd crashed into their universe and somehow become worth saving. Then he materialized on Vander 4. The planet was exactly as advertised, harsh, cold, with a settlement that looked like it had been built from salvaged starship parts and defiant determination. The spaceport was full of species Logan had never seen, all of them armed, all of them minding their own business in that particular way that said they expected others to do the same. Logan pulled his jacket tighter against the wind, adjusted the pack on his shoulder, and started walking. Somewhere in this settlement, there'd be work for someone with his skills. Somewhere in this galaxy, there'd be a place he could exist without becoming a political flashpoint. And if the Borg came back, or the Romulans, or any other faction that thought he was worth acquiring, they'd learn what the Queen had already figured out: some beings cost more to take than they're worth. Logan disappeared into the crowd of Vander 4, just another traveler in a universe full of them, and for the first time since arriving in this dimension, he felt something approaching peace. Behind him, unseen and undetected, a figure watched from the shadows. Romulan, judging by the features, but dressed in nondescript clothing that wouldn't identify affiliation. The operative spoke quietly into a subspace communicator. Target has arrived at designated coordinates. Maintaining surveillance as ordered. He believes himself free, which serves our purposes perfectly. Commander Seatle will be pleased. The transmission ended. The operative vanished into Vander's crowds, one shadow among many, waiting for the moment when Logan's guard would lower enough to make acquisition practical. The universe, it seemed, wasn't done with Wolverine yet. Vander 4 had the kind of reputation that kept polite society away, which made it perfect for beings who preferred not to be found. The settlement sprawled across a frozen plateau, its structures a chaotic mix of prefabricated colonial modules, salvaged starship hulls, and improvised shelters that defied conventional architecture. 3 moons hung in the perpetually overcast sky, their combined light creating an eerie twilight that never quite became day or night. Logan had spent 6 weeks integrating into Vander's ecosystem of outcasts, mercenaries, traders, and refugees. He'd found work as security for a Ferengi merchant named Gant who dealt in specialized acquisitions, which was polite terminology for smuggling items that governments preferred didn't cross their borders. The job was simple: stand near Gant's warehouse, look dangerous, and discourage theft. Logan was exceptionally qualified. The pay was adequate. The questions were non-existent. And most importantly, nobody cared that Logan could heal from wounds that should kill or that his skeleton was bonded with metal from another universe. On Vander, everyone had secrets. Survival depended on respecting that universal truth. He'd rented a small compartment in the settlement's lower levels, 10 feet by 12 feet of personal space carved from rock and insulated against the planet's brutal cold. Spartan furnishings, a sleeping platform, a replicator that produced barely edible food, and a viewport that looked out onto the settlement's industrial sector. It wasn't comfortable, but comfort had never been Logan's priority. Safety was. Anonymity was. And for 6 weeks, he'd achieved both. Then the nightmares started. Logan woke in his compartment's darkness, claws extended, chest heaving, the phantom sensation of Borg nanoprobes crawling through his bloodstream. His healing factor had purged them weeks ago, but memory didn't heal as cleanly as flesh. He could still see the Queen's face, could still hear that 1,000-voiced declaration, "We will return." He retracted his claws and checked the chronometer. 0347 local time. 3 hours before his shift at Gant's warehouse. Not enough time to sleep again, the nightmares would just resume, but too much time to simply wait. Logan grabbed his jacket and the DK Tog clock had gifted him. Vander's streets were never truly empty, but the pre-dawn hours were as close to peaceful as the settlement got. He needed air, movement, something to occupy his mind besides the growing certainty that he was still being watched. He'd felt it for days now, that particular itch between his shoulder blades that came from decades of being hunted. Someone was tracking him. Not obviously, not clumsily, but with the kind of professional patience that suggested training and resources. His enhanced senses occasionally caught traces, a scent that didn't belong, the sound of footsteps that matched his pace too precisely, the feeling of eyes evaluating his routine. Romulans, most likely. The Tal Shir didn't give up easily. Logan emerged onto Vander's main avenue, a wide corridor carved through the settlement's heart where traders set up stalls selling everything from Klingon blood wine to Ferengi self-sealing stem bolts. Even at this hour, a few merchants tended their wares, hoping to catch shift workers or insomniacs with currency to spend. He was halfway to his usual cantina when the first attacker struck. The blade came from behind, aimed for the gap between his ribs, a professional kill strike that would have pierced heart and lungs simultaneously. Logan's enhanced hearing caught the whisper of movement a half-second before impact. He twisted, the blade scraping across his ribs instead of punching through vital organs. Pain flared, but his healing factor was already responding. Logan spun, claws extending, and found himself facing 3 assailants. Not Romulan, these were Nausicans, a species known for their brutality and willingness to work as hired muscle. Each stood over 6 feet tall, powerfully built, carrying weapons that looked like a fusion of traditional blades and energy discharge systems. "The Ferengi pays well for you alive," the lead Nausicaan growled, his translator rendering the words in harsh standard. "Dead is acceptable if you resist." Logan's claws gleamed in the settlement's artificial lighting. "Who hired you? Does it matter?" The Nausicaan activated his weapon, electricity crackling along the blade's edge. "You are worth 20 bars of gold-pressed latinum. That is all we need to know." They attacked in coordinated pattern, 2 flanking while the third pressed center, forcing Logan to divide his attention. The electrified blades were designed to overcome personal shields and stun targets into submission. Against most opponents, the tactic would have worked perfectly. Logan wasn't most opponents. He took the center attacker's blade through his left shoulder, letting the electricity course through his body while his right hand drove claws through the Nausicaa's weapon arm. The mercenary screamed as adamantium severed muscle and nerve bundles. Logan yanked his shoulder free of the blade, the wound already healing, and pivoted to face the flanking attackers. The fight lasted 90 seconds. When it ended, all 3 Nausicaans lay unconscious or disabled, their weapons scattered across the avenue. Logan stood among them, breathing hard, his clothing torn and bloodied, but functionally unharmed. A small crowd had gathered, Vanda residents who watched with the detached interest of beings accustomed to violence. Gant pushed through the crowd, his Ferengi features twisted in concern. "Logan. Are you injured? Should I summon medical?" He stopped, seeing the wounds already sealing. "Ah. Right. I forget sometimes what you are. Who put a bounty on me?" Logan demanded. Gant's massive ears drooped. "I may have heard rumors. 20 bars of latinum for your capture, offered through intermediaries. No one knows the original source, but that kind of payment suggests serious resources. Orion Syndicate, maybe. Or Romulans," Logan finished grimly. "Possibly," Gant admitted. "Though 20 bars is more than the Tal Shir typically offers. That suggests multiple interested parties may be bidding against each other, driving the price up." The Ferengi's expression shifted to calculation. "Which means your value has increased significantly. I should probably renegotiate your security contract." Gant. "Right. Not the time." The merchant stepped back. "What will you do?" Logan looked at the unconscious Nausicaans, then at the watching crowd. Word would spread. If there was a bounty, more hunters would come. Professionals next time, not thugs who relied on brute force. And eventually, someone would get lucky, or smart, or desperate enough to succeed. Running wasn't working. Hiding wasn't working. As long as he stayed reactive, he'd always be prey. Time to become the hunter. The subspace communication terminal in Vander's commercial district charged exorbitant rates for secure transmissions, but Logan had saved enough from Gant's employment to afford 10 minutes. He entered the booth, activated the encryption protocols, and input the frequency Crusher had given him. The doctor's face appeared on the screen after a delay, her expression shifting from surprise to concern. "Logan? Are you all right? You're not dying, are you? That transponder was for..." "I'm fine, document. But I need information." Logan leaned forward. "Someone put a bounty on me. 20 bars of gold-pressed latinum. That's serious money in this part of space, and it's bringing every mercenary and bounty hunter in the sector. Crusher's medical background immediately shifted to tactical analysis. 20 bars, that's approximately 2 million Federation credits. That's not just serious, Logan, that's the kind of payment reserved for high-value political targets or beings with strategic importance. Her fingers moved off-screen, presumably accessing databases. I'm checking our intelligence networks. Nothing official through Starfleet channels, but... She paused. There are rumors. Unconfirmed reports that the Romulan Tal Shir is offering substantial payment for any information leading to your location. But that doesn't explain this level of bounty. Someone else is involved. Who? I don't know. But Captain Picard should be informed. If multiple factions are competing to acquire you. Doc, I didn't call to drag the Enterprise into this. I called because I need to know who I'm up against so I can handle it myself. Crusher's expression hardened. Logan, handling it yourself against coordinated intelligence agencies will get you captured or killed. Even with your healing factor, you can't fight off entire organizations. I've survived worse odds. You shouldn't have to. Her tone softened. Let us help. Officially or otherwise. Picard bent regulations to give you freedom. He'd do it again if it meant keeping you safe. Logan was silent for a moment, weighing options. Pride said handle this alone. Experience said pride got you killed. And something Picard had said during their last meeting echoed in his memory, the measure of a civilization is how it treats those who don't fit easily into its structures. Maybe the measure of a man was knowing when to accept help instead of facing every fight alone. All right, Logan said finally. But I'm not becoming a Federation project. I need information, maybe some tactical support. That's it. Crusher smiled. I'll contact the captain immediately. Where are you? Vander 4. And Doc. Tell Picard to bring Kvok if possible. I got a feeling this is gonna get messy, and Klingon are good at messy. I'll relay the message. Logan, stay alive until we get there. That's kind of my specialty. The transmission ended. Logan sat in the booth for another moment, processing the decision he'd just made. For over a century, he'd operated on the principle that relying on others meant vulnerability, that trust was a luxury he couldn't afford. But this universe had already proven different in unexpected ways. Picard had kept his word. Crusher had offered genuine help without ulterior motives. Kvok had fought beside him against the Borg without expecting anything in return. Maybe it was time to stop treating every offer of alliance as a potential betrayal. Logan left the communication booth and headed back toward his compartment, taking a deliberately circuitous route designed to expose anyone following. His enhanced senses tracked movements in the shadows, listening for footsteps that didn't belong, watching for the telltale shimmer of cloaking technology. There, a figure on a rooftop 2 buildings over, tracking his progress with professional precision. Romulan, based on the body language and the distinctive ozone signature of their personal cloaking devices. Logan filed the location mentally but didn't react. Let them think their surveillance remained undetected. Information worked both ways. He returned to his compartment and waited. The Enterprise was at least 3 days away at maximum warp, assuming Crusher reached them immediately and Picard decided to respond. 3 days of playing target while bounty hunters and intelligence operatives circled. Logan sat on his sleeping platform, DK Tog in one hand, and allowed himself a grim smile. The universe wanted to make him a prize worth fighting over. Fine. But prizes that fought back tended to become more trouble than they were worth. The Romulans, the bounty hunters, whoever else was out there, they were all about to learn what the Borg Queen had already discovered. Some beings were too expensive to acquire. And Logan was done being anyone's asset. Through his viewport, Vander's 3 moons cast their eerie light across the settlement. In the shadows between buildings, watchers waited. In the darkness of space beyond the planet, ships approached. And somewhere in the vast machinery of interstellar politics, powers greater than individuals moved pieces on a board that spanned galaxies. But in a small compartment on a frozen world, one mutant with adamantium claws prepared for war on his own terms. The next 3 days would determine whether Logan found a place in this universe worth staying for, or whether he'd spend eternity running from beings who saw him as nothing more than a resource to be exploited. Either way, he'd make damn sure they remembered his name. Wolverine. The warrior who refused to die, refused to submit, and refused to become anyone's weapon but his own. The hunt was on. And this time, Logan wasn't the prey. The USS Enterprise D dropped out of warp at the edge of the Vander system exactly 63 hours after Logan's transmission. Beside it, decloaking with theatrical precision, came the coroner. Kvok had not only answered Picard's request for assistance but had brought 2 additional Klingon birds of prey as escort. The message was clear: whatever forces sought to claim Logan would face unified opposition from both the Federation and the Klingon Empire. Logan stood on Vander's northern plateau, watching the ships take position in orbit. Behind him, the settlement had transformed into an armed camp. Word of his true nature, and the substantial bounty, had spread through Vander's underworld like wildfire. But something unexpected had happened in the 3 days of waiting. Gant had rallied other merchants who relied on Logan's security services. A Tellarite dock supervisor who'd shared drinks with Logan organized the station's laborers. Even a group of Orion refugees, beings who understood what it meant to be hunted for what you were rather than what you'd done, had volunteered to help defend against the bounty hunters and mercenaries descending on Vander. They hadn't done it for profit or ideology. They'd done it because in 6 weeks, Logan had proven himself through simple consistency. He kept his word, he didn't exploit the vulnerable, and he treated everyone with the same blunt honesty regardless of species or status. On a world of outcasts, that had meant something. The Romulan operative who'd been tracking Logan, Commander Sievel's agent, had been discovered and quietly detained by Vander's informal security network. The bounty hunters who'd attempted raids had met coordinated resistance that left them nursing injuries and empty pockets. And when a Cardassian diplomatic envoy had tried to bribe local authorities into surrendering Logan, they'd been escorted off-world with their ship systems mysteriously failing until they cleared Vander space. Captain Picard materialized alongside Logan on the plateau, with Kvok, Worf, and Dr. Crusher forming the away team. The Klingon captain carried fresh scars from some recent battle, his honor sash displaying a new campaign icon. The Enterprise's officers looked as professional as ever, though Crusher's medical tricorder was already scanning Logan before greetings were exchanged. "You've made quite the impression," Picard observed, gesturing toward the settlement below where armed beings stood watch at key access points. "When we contacted Vander's colonial authority to coordinate your extraction, they informed us that you had declined to need rescuing." Logan's claws extended and retracted reflexively, a habit when processing complex emotions. Turns out running wasn't the answer. Neither was hiding. "These people," he gestured to the settlement, "they don't care what I am or where I came from. They care what I do. That's different." Kvok barked a laugh. "You have found your house, Logan. Not Klingon, not Federation, but warriors nonetheless. Beings who understand that honor is measured through action, not words." He clapped Logan on the shoulder hard enough to stagger most humans. "I approve. Though I am disappointed we arrived too late for glorious battle." "There'll be other battles," Logan replied. "The Tal Shir won't stop. Neither will whoever else is bankrolling that bounty. But now they know taking me means going through people who'll fight back. Changes the tactical calculation." Dr. Crusher finished her scan, relief evident in her expression. "No new injuries, no nanoprobe contamination, vital signs stable. Whatever you've been doing for the past 3 days, it's working. I've been making a choice, document." Logan met Picard's gaze directly. "You asked me once what I'd do in this universe. I've figured it out. I'm not Federation material, too much history, too many edges that don't fit your structure. And I'm not Klingon enough to serve the Empire, despite what Kvok thinks. But I can be something else. What's that? Picard asked. The guy who stands between people who can't defend themselves and the bastards who'd exploit them. Logan's expression hardened with purpose. This universe has the Borg, the Romulans, the Cardassians, and God knows what else out there. They prey on colonies like Vander, on refugees, on beings nobody powerful enough gives a damn about. Someone needs to push back. Might as well be someone who can take the damage and keep fighting. Worf's approval was evident in his stance. A warrior's path. There is honor in defending those who cannot defend themselves. It's also incredibly dangerous, Crusher interjected. Logan, without support infrastructure, without medical facilities, without backup. I'll have backup. Logan gestured to the settlement. These people offer to stand with me. And maybe, he looked between Picard and Kvok, maybe I call in favors from time to time. When situations need either Federation diplomacy or Klingon firepower to complement my particular skill set. Picard considered this carefully. What you're describing sounds remarkably similar to an independent operative conducting missions that fall outside normal governmental oversight. The Federation has complicated relationships with such individuals. But we do not prohibit them, Worf added. Especially when they operate in territories where Federation assistance cannot officially reach. Kvok's grin widened. The Klingon Empire has no such complications. We would consider Logan a Vaj, a free warrior who serves honor rather than hierarchy. Such beings are celebrated in our culture. I would gladly provide support when called upon. Logan felt something unfamiliar stirring in his chest, not quite hope, but something approaching purpose. For over a century, he'd been a weapon aimed by others, a soldier without a war, a survivor without a reason to survive beyond simple stubborn refusal to die. But this was different. This was choosing his own battles, protecting people because he decided they were worth protecting, becoming something more than the violent legacy WeaponX had tried to forge him into. There's one condition, Logan said. I work alone unless I specifically request help. No monitoring, no check-ins, no intelligence agencies keeping tabs on my activities. I need to know that when I call for backup, it's because I chose to trust you, not because you're tracking me anyway. Picard extended his hand. Agreed. With the understanding that if you ever need sanctuary, medical assistance, or simply a place where you're not being hunted, the Enterprise's doors remain open. Logan gripped Picard's hand firmly. Appreciate that, Captain. Kvok placed his hand over both of theirs in the Klingon tradition. And if you need warriors willing to die gloriously beside you, the Coronar will answer your call. Though I expect detailed stories afterward for the songs. Dr. Crusher added her hand to the pile. And if you're dying, really dying, you use that transponder. No arguments. Worf completed the circle. Kapla, Logan. May you find the battles worth fighting. They stood there on Vander's frozen plateau, 5 beings from different worlds and different philosophies, united by the understanding that sometimes the right choice meant defying regulations, ignoring political boundaries, and trusting that individuals could make a difference even in a universe that seemed determined to grind them down. The ships in orbit, Federation, Klingon, and the ramshackle vessels of Vander's defenders, formed an unlikely fleet. A symbol that Logan wasn't alone anymore, even if he walked his path solo. As the away team prepared to transport back to their ships, Logan called out one last time. Hey, Picard. That thing you said about civilizations being measured by how they treat people who don't fit? You were right. This universe might be different after all. Picard smiled. Perhaps, Logan. Or perhaps you're what makes it different. The choice to stand when running would be easier, to fight when surrendering would be safer, to trust when isolation would be simpler, that's what defines us. Not our capabilities, but our choices. The transporter beams claimed them, and Logan stood alone on the plateau once more. But not truly alone. Behind him, Vander's defenders maintained their watch. Above him, Allied ships held position. And somewhere out in the vast darkness between stars, threats gathered that would eventually force him to test whether this new purpose could survive contact with a universe that didn't care about individual determination. The Borg would return, better prepared for his healing factor and adamantium claws. The Romulans would continue their schemes, patient and calculating. New enemies would emerge, beings and powers he hadn't encountered yet, threats that would test him in ways he couldn't predict. But for the first time since a dimensional rift had torn him from his original universe, Logan felt ready. Not just to survive, but to live. Not just to fight, but to choose what he fought for. He was Wolverine, the warrior who couldn't die, who refused to submit, who'd found his place not through belonging to any single faction, but through standing at the intersection where courage met necessity. And in a universe that seemed designed to categorize, control, and contain, being uncategorizable was its own form of freedom. Logan descended from the plateau toward the settlement, toward the people who'd chosen to stand with him, toward a future he'd forge one battle at a time. Behind him, the Enterprise and Coronar broke orbit, returning to their respective missions. But the alliance they'd forged, informal, unconventional, and entirely unprecedented, would echo through the quadrant in ways none of them could predict. Some legends were born through prophecy. Others through tragedy. And some, like Wolverine's story in the Star Trek universe, were born through the simple act of refusing to be anything except exactly what they chose to be. A warrior. A protector. A being who proved that even in a galaxy governed by rules, regulations, and rigid structures, there was still room for someone who wrote their own code. The story of what Logan would become in this universe had only begun. But it would be his story, told on his terms, fought with his claws. And that made all the difference. Live long and prosper. Hit that subscribe button for more stories.